everybody, I'm Lily and I am new to BookTube. This is like the most awkward thing I have ever done. I know that there's a newbie book tag out there somewhere floating around, but I decided to do something a little bit different and try to introduce myself using my bookshelf. So first off, not every book on this bookshelf belongs to me. I actually share it with my younger sister. She's currently gone at college and I'm back from college applying to graduate school, so it's all mine for now. My family loves to read and we have a larger bookshelf downstairs that has a lot more books than I have here, but these are the ones that I've read most recently or like the most. I know that there are a lot of other booktubers out there, but as I hear in writing a lot, everything has been said before, but it hasn't been said by you, which I take to mean everyone comes from somewhere different. Everyone has a different experience, and so they can lend those experiences to what they're reading. And I think that gives everyone a different perspective. So, despite there already being lots of booktubers out there, I don't think there's anything wrong with there being 1 or 100 or 1,000 more. Everyone has something different to offer. As you might notice, I have a lot of YA fantasy books on my shelf, and you might be groaning to yourself thinking, great, another YA fantasy booktuber. When I was younger, I really didn't like to read, and I think the problem was a lot of my teachers were trying to suggest books that were more realistic. They were about kids and normal everyday situations, and I was not having it. I didn't want anything to do with those books. I found them horribly boring, and I did not like to read. However, at some point when I was in grade school, someone suggested to me the Goosebumps books, and that is the series that just completely opened up reading for me. I was hooked after I found them. I thought that they were great. They were scary at the time. And I actually still own quite a few. My mom was going through our bookshelf the other year and asked if I would want any of the Goosebumps books that we still owned. And of course I was like, don't throw them away! So I actually have quite a few of my favorites still. They're not on my shelf, but they're safely tucked away. I couldn't let such an important part of my childhood just go. After that, I realized that fantasy and less realistic fiction was much more up my alley. I also very early on discovered a series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. I absolutely adored those when I was younger, and I was super excited when Netflix decided to make it into a series. I'm actually on the last episode in season 1, so I'm looking forward to reviewing the series and getting to talk about some of my favorite books from my childhood. But I think you'll also see that not everything on my shelf is YA, and not everything here is fantasy either. As you may notice on my shelf, I have several book series that aren't complete. Some of them might be missing a last book or a middle book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I haven't read all of the books in the series. When I was away at college, I didn't have a lot of room for books, so instead I decided to start buying books on my iPad. And so I also have sort of a digital bookshelf, if you will, where I have a lot of other books that you probably won't find here. One thing that sort of kills me, and it might kill some of you too, is that before I went to college, I did start reading some series, and then more of the books, some of the sequels came out while I was in college, so now I have series split up between ebooks and physical books, and it kills me. I want to have them all in one place, but I also don't want to go back and buy a second copy of a book, even if I really liked it. I just don't know if it's worth having 2 copies of the same book just so that I can have them all in one form or the other. I do prefer reading physical books, but when it's necessary, I don't really mind reading ebooks either. But give me a physical book any day of the week over an ebook. Another book series that I have on my shelf, but not very many of, is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I love this series, and I actually have most of these books on my e-reader. I came across the books while I was at college, and I didn't really have much room, so I decided just to go ahead and buy the books on my iPad. And when I first found the books, I actually found the novellas first. It sounds like a lot of people didn't find the novellas first and read just the first novel in the series before going back. However, I found the novellas first before reading the rest of the series. And so I have each of the novellas separately from before they were bound into a single book on my iPad. That's why when I went to a book signing with Sarah J. Maas, I decided to go ahead and buy the bound novellas so I'd have it all in one place. Funny story, it was actually a signing for A Court of Thorns and Roses, but by the time I got there, just 5 minutes late. I know you're probably thinking 5 minutes late to a book signing, that's kind of rude. In my defense, I didn't realize it was also a book talk as well as a book signing. I was under the impression that I was just going to go in, pick up a book, have her sign it, and leave. I obviously don't know anything about this. I would know better in the future, but in any case, all of the copies of A Court of Thorns and Roses were sold out by the time I got there. I was admonished by the librarians. I asked for directions to the room in which Sarah was doing her talk. It was embarrassing. And when I got into the room, Sarah was already doing her talk. I kind of just stood in the back of the room and listened quietly, trying to draw as little attention to myself as possible because I felt super rude. At the end of the talk, however, it turned out that she was actually going to be signing the books at the back of the room where I was standing, so although I was the last person there, I ended up being the first person to get a book signed. It was super exciting for me. She's one of my favorite authors, and this is the only book that I actually have signed by an author. She's the only one I've ever met. It was a great experience. Though an awkward experience. I was trying to make small talk with her while they were setting up the signing table, and it just got kind of awkward for me. She probably doesn't even remember it. Just one of 1,000 faces, but yeah, in any case, awkward. There is a series on my shelf that I simply don't have all the books to, and I haven't read all of the books to. I know a lot of people love The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare, and I love the first 3 books in that series. However, I have never read past the 5th book, and I feel kind of bad about it because I know a lot of people love that series. So, there's a story to this. When I was reading the first 3 books, for some reason, I got it into my head that this was just supposed to be a trilogy. I don't know where that thought came from. Maybe it was originally supposed to be a trilogy. Maybe it was never supposed to be a trilogy, and I'm just crazy, which is, not so far-fetched. But for whatever reason, I thought this was going to be a trilogy. So after I finished the last book, or what I thought was going to be the last book, I kind of wiped my hands of it. I said, that was great. I'm sad it's over. Let's move on. So then when the next book came out, I was kind of surprised. And I picked it up because I was excited. And I wanted to know how it ended. But I couldn't really remember exactly what had happened in the book before that. I had already kind of moved on, and so I just couldn't get into it. And so here it sits, unfinished, possibly forever, but I've heard that a lot of people really have loved Lady Midnight, but you kind of have to finish The Mortal Instruments in order to read that. So it may be on my TBR sometime here very shortly. If I would move my big head out of the way, you'd actually see that I have a lot of books on marine life and marine biology. They're not all mine. My sister and I kind of share a love for the ocean, but I'm actually applying to graduate schools at the moment for marine conservation, so fingers crossed that I get into one, and hopefully come fall, these videos will be coming from a very different location, hopefully in a tropical locale. Another thing you may or may not notice about my bookshelf is that I have several tiaras on it. I think there are 2 or 3 on this side, and then there's another one over here. And you might be thinking, what's up with all of the tiaras? I'm actually an Irish dancer and have been for about 12 years now, so a large portion of my life. Those are various tiaras from my various costumes and get-ups. I probably won't talk about Irish dance too much more on this channel unless anyone's interested, but that's why they're there. Also, who doesn't want a little bit of sparkle on their bookshelf? In addition to doing just your normal kind of booktube stuff, I also hope to have writing videos. I'm currently in the process of writing my own YA fantasy novel. I'm about 70,000 words in, which is quite a good word count, however, I have a long way to go. So I hope to post writing updates and little things that I find along the way that may be challenging or things that I think are great tips and tricks for writers. There are a lot of things I wish I knew before I started writing my own novel, which may help others that are interested in writing. So I hope to post little tips, tricks, and my adventures along the way. And before I go, one other thing that I wanted to bring up was that I know how awkward it can be to write comments or like someone's video or post on social media. I am a person who will go on Instagram, scroll through a whole bunch of people's things, and not like anything. Not because I don't like it, but because I feel awkward liking it. Like, why would they want some random person they've never met to like or comment on their stuff? You know? Does anyone else feel that way? I have been a lurker on YouTube for quite some time. Probably a year or more. I watch the videos, I take in the information, I take suggestions, and then I leave. I've never left a comment. I've thought about comments, but I've never left one. I haven't really interacted with people. I follow a few booktubers on other social media, and I'm subscribed to quite a few, but I've never actually interacted with anyone on BookTube before. So this is a completely new experience, and I'm just jumping right on in. So I want to let you know that this is a place where I will never judge you for liking or commenting or posting your own opinion about things, unless you're being super creepy, in which case you had it coming. So if you ever have an opinion or you want to share something about whatever the topic of the video is, please feel free. I would love to have a conversation with you, and I'm sure everyone else here would too. Never feel intimidated to post your own ideas. Alright, well that just about sums it up. Thank you for watching my first BookTube video. In addition to my BookTube channel, I also have a Twitter that I actually just set up. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world who hasn't had a Twitter until now. Feel free to follow me on that. I also have a Tumblr and an Instagram, and I'll link everything down below if you're interested in any of that. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again. This is probably the most made up you'll ever see me, just so you know. Appreciate it while it lasts.